Hey guys, what's up? It's Paul Salazar and Kyle Amicucci.
What's up?
We have the honor of interviewing our boy, our friend, and a guest to our first On Frequency event next month on March 20th, Bobby Hobart, life and design coach. Welcome, brother.
Let's go, boys. I'm happy to be here, and I'm very excited about March 20th, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point. But yeah, what an honor to be on the show today.
Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate it.
So let's start. Let's start with our story because Kyle introduced me to you.
Yeah.
You had, you could say it.
Yeah, I don't even know, scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, whatever the one may have been, I'm not sure, but obviously I came across your page. I think it was when you were just in the beginning phases of it. I wouldn't say beginning as in just starting social aspects of it, but beginning as in like, okay, he's putting content out that is resonating. I like the style. Everything that you were doing kind of was hitting the notes that I wanted to be and surround myself with. Then I started following you. I think you were around like 4,000 followers at the time. Come to find out that you were an East Coast boy.
You're an
OG, baby. And I found out you were from an East Coast as well, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I'm also from Massachusetts, so I was like, okay, this is a homie right here. And then you posted that you're doing the men's group.
I'm stoked that the content was resonating, and it's so interesting because 2022 is when like my socials really like blew up and like took a huge shift. But what most people didn't see or know is like 6-7 years of just like grinding away, trying to get like, some amount of recognition. So if you looked at it on a graph, like it is a very like flat line, and then 2022 comes and it's just like the classic like hyper stick or hockey stick growth. And so, however you found me, I was grateful that you found it, the content, and then coming through to the men's meetup was amazing too.
Yeah. And as far as that hockey stick growth that you saw in 2022, is there like a pivotal moment that you felt that like, okay, it's either a mental shift that you're changing or a content shift that you're changing? Was it the work that you put in to get to that point?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Gary Vee always preaches like, go to where the attention is. And I just took everything that I was already doing, which was like podcasting content, and it was November 2021, and TikTok was really starting to pick up traction. And a good friend of mine, JT Barnett, was really involved in heavy in the space. And I'll never forget, in LA at Little Lunch, I met up with him for coffee, and he looked at me dead in the eyes, and he's like, "You need to go all in on TikTok right now." And it was just like, I knew he understood the content landscape, and I just trusted him. And so really, it was just going to where the attention was. And I just started kind of dabbling. And I had less than like 1,000 followers on my TikTok. And then it was one morning routine video that I probably posted within 30 days of him telling me to get on the platform, that went from, a few views to 4 million in a week. And I went from less than 1,000 followers to 40,000 on TikTok. And I was like, whoa.
That's more than a Super Bowl ad.
This is crazy. But what was so wild to me was this was a 60-second video of me talking about my morning routine. And I had recorded at that point probably 10 or 15 morning routine podcasts over 6 years, and each of them getting maybe 100 plays. Yes, the format was different, but like instead of spending 25 minutes on the episode, I would spend 60 seconds on this video. And to see the response and people like, "Oh my God, I need to try this," and getting like that attention or validation, it was career changing for me. I didn't realize how much it was going to change my career, but to see that growth of 40,000, where up to that point it took me 6 years to go from 3,000 to 9,000 on Instagram. I saw 40,000 in a few weeks. It was a huge shift.
Yeah, man. And what were you doing at that time when you were creating content? Were you working 9 to 5? Were you all in on the business? What was that like day to day like for you?
Yeah, 2016 to 2019, my slogan was podcaster by day, Uber driver by night. And so I drove Uber full time in Boston for a year after college. Then I moved to LA, drove again for about 2 years. And then one of the founders that I had interviewed on the podcast in August of 2018 was the founder of Liquid IV. Long story short, a year later, I posted something on social media, and he saw it and was like, "Hey, I have a great opportunity for you." And so I left Uber, went full time at Liquid IV, kept working on the side hustle of content creation, and essentially worked full time for them for 4 years while continuing to figure out my social media presence. And it wasn't until the hockey stick growth that then I was able to start monetizing it. So, year 0 to 6, over that 6 years, I maybe made $1,500, $2,000, maybe. And then that first year in 2022 with brand partnerships and coaching, I probably netted about $50K. And it was just like, whoa, this is insane.
Yeah. There's opportunity.
So I was hustling for those first 6 years, 2016 until top of 2023, I was doing something to fund the passion project.
How did you get to interview the founder of Liquid IV?
Brick by brick, baby.
But
what's crazy is I hit this. I'll answer that directly in a second. I hit this pocket. Now let's set the frame. It's 2018. Podcasts are not what they are today. Like it's a thing. People are listening. Not a lot of people are starting them. And I kind of got into this niche of like West Side entrepreneurs, right? I interviewed the founder of Cuts Clothing, the founder of Liquid IV, the founder of Movement. 2 of those 3 companies have been acquired for north of 100 million, right? So like I got into this really, really unique spot, and I was living north of Burbank. I had these founders. I like look back on it, it's just like cracks me up. I had these founders driving 45 minutes to my house. I lived in the hood, and I was recording my podcast out of my bedroom. I called it the Bedrudio, where half of my room was wall painted and shot from a GoPro. And if you saw the clip, you're like, wow, this is like a studio. But if you flip the camera around, it was literally on my bed. Like the tripod, 2 legs were on the bed with one on the floor type vibe, right? And it happened because for the first year, I just interviewed people within reach. Like people that I knew that were doing passionate things. And then eventually I got like a big guest, and then that rippled to bigger guests, right? I was then able to leverage the credibility of some of these bigger guests to get bigger guests. And what led me to the founder of Liquid IV specifically was a buddy of mine made an intro to one of the first 5 employees at Movement. I had him on the podcast, and it was the ripple effect, right? He wanted to alley-oop all of his friends that were that wanted a platform to tell their story. And so he's like, yo, this was awesome. Like, you got to meet my buddy, Stephen Borelli, the founder of Cuts. And I'm like, Cuts? What is that? Some clothing company. So I interview him. He loves it. He's like, dude, this is great. You got to interview my buddy, Brandon, who's the founder of this company called Liquid IV. I'm like, Liquid IV? What the hell is that? So it was just like the best case scenario was word of mouth, like referrals. And I got into this real specific niche of these founders, and they just like kept making intros for me without me ever asking. Wow. Like, yeah. If I look back on that the podcast was called Purpose in the Youth. It was the first podcast I ever hosted. I did it for like 3 years. I honestly don't think in those 3 years I ever asked for a direct intro. It was all purely like trusting, like me planting seeds, me doing the work myself. And even there were guests that I was like, dude, I want to interview their friend, but I just never wanted to overstep. Yeah. And somehow, some way, they would end up being like, hey, do you want to interview him? And I'm like, yeah, I actually do. So I'm really glad that I kind of approached it like from a patient standpoint back then.
And what was the reason why you started a podcast? Like, was that to, get out of your Uber job, or like, what was the end goal for that? Or it was just to interview cool people and just to, learn a little bit more?
Great question. So the context is I went to Bentley University, a small business school outside the city of Boston. 99% of the people that graduate from there have a full-time career within 6 months. I got an email about that when I graduated. Finance, accounting, business, very business-focused school. And during my junior year, I did an internship, and I realized the thing I thought I wanted to do was absolutely not what I wanted to do. So now I was like, whoa. My entire life, I've been thinking like suit, nice car, watch, office, climb the ladder, good. Yeah. Got a taste of it. I was like, no. And no disrespect to anyone that's in that life. Like, I got a taste, and I was like, this is not for me. Yeah. And so I went into my senior year and just like, what am I going to do now? And I was like, I'm just going to have fun my senior year and I'll figure it out as time goes. And by the end of senior year, I realized I don't know what my passion is. I need to figure that out. I started listening to the School of Greatness podcast with Lewis Howes, and I was just super inspired, right? And the one thing that business school taught me was, it taught me a lot of things, but the one thing that stuck was survey the market. If you see something that doesn't exist, but there's a need for it, create it. And so while listening to Lewis Howes, the School of Greatness podcast, I was so inspired by all these big time guests. But I was like, where's the young gunners? Where's the people in like their 20s and their early 30s that are just getting started? That's more relatable to me because I'm 22 at the time. And so I couldn't find it. And so I had like an epiphany where I was like, I can't find the podcast I'm looking for. And then I did like a self-awareness check. I'm a curious person. I'm an extrovert. I love people. Why don't I just create this thing? Yeah. And so thus I created Purpose in the Youth with the idea of let's figure out how these people in their 20s, in their youth, were so like clear on what they wanted to do. And so I just started interviewing people. And along the way, I figured out the passion was the vehicle that I was driving, not Uber, the vehicle of the podcast of trying to find the passion and purpose. That was the thing that I ultimately discovered. This is what I want to do. I want to document these stories. I want to be a content creator. I want to share these lessons and perspective with the world. And I want to impact people.
No, that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, no, and that leads right into what you do now, right? It's because you've interviewed all these people and you've learned about what it took for them to get to where they're at, which is huge. I mean, we're actually listing a house down the street from the house that your guy at Liquid IV bought. So it's a
nice neighborhood.
It's a really nice neighborhood. So is that? I mean, obviously, based on what you're saying, those podcasts, learning from that, watching Lewis Howes, led you to become a Life by Design coach.
Yeah. So if we look at it from a bird's eye view, over the last 9 years, I'd say there have been 3 chapters as a creator that I've gone through. Chapter 1 was Purpose in the Youth. It was finding my passion, figuring out what my purpose was, and I figured it out. Chapter 2 was almost being a guinea pig to myself of like, I want to see what it looks and feels like to be a high performer. I want to, prioritize my mental health. I want to prioritize my physical health. I want to build community. I want to start dating and find someone that like is in alignment with me. I want to understand how to set boundaries. I was a guinea pig and I just wanted to test and learn. And also at this time during phase 2 is when I went from this place of pure burnout from driving Uber to having a 6-figure salary and time off, and I could start like living in LA, right? When I was driving Uber, I was working in LA. I didn't live there. I worked LA, right? Phase 3 was right when the hypergrowth came. I was operating from a place of like, I actually feel like I'm an expert in this. And if I had to distill it down to, what is the thing you're an expert in? It was building success without burnout, right? I had gone through that phase of burnout and just like work was literally my identity to the other side of like work-life harmony was just beautiful. Like working really hard Monday, but also, playing hard on the weekends, but then being excited Monday morning to get back into it. And like, it was just like this beautiful like dance where I feel like everything was in alignment. So that's how I got to kind of this when I'm in phase 3 right now, which is like, taking all the learnings that I've learned and teaching others, whether it's through men's retreats, whether it's through one-on-one coaching, team coaching, trying to guide others through the path that I've been through myself.
Nice. How hard was that transition going from you're working your ass off? Because I've been there in Los Angeles, right, where I'm working a restaurant at night, I'm building my real estate and my entrepreneurial career during the afternoon, and burnout is a real thing, and not a lot of people talk about it, especially in not so much a city of dreams, but just in other aspects of life where you're going after something you really care about. But then you get this big paycheck that comes in. And it's like, okay, I'm making 6 figures in Liquid IV. And did that kind of ease off on the foot to the pedal, going towards your own aspect of what you wanted to create? And how did you transition out of that to make it a full-time thing?
It's great. That's a great question, Kyle. The transition was a spotlight on the burnout. Because here's the thing, when I was operating from a place of burnout, all I felt I could do to get out of the burnout was to keep working.
Just dig yourself
I needed
deeper.
to get to this. I needed to get to the like this destination that just felt like it kept shifting. The closer I got, the further it felt away, right? And so when Liquid IV came into play, right, it was very quickly I realized this, right? I went from a place of truly working 7 days of the week. I never took a day off. I drove Uber 6 of the days. My day off was on Mondays, and that was the day I just like edited podcasts, did all the research. And the reason was that for that was it was the slowest day of Uber. Like not many people were going out at night, right? So like Mondays were my like podcast full-time day job. And then 6 days a week, I would, work the afternoons while working on the podcast in the morning. But very quickly after the career, I locked in at Liquid IV, great salary, benefits, awesome. I'm commuting 45 minutes to work in the morning, hour and 15 on the way back. Weekdays, I'm just locked in. Saturday mornings would come, and it's like, what do I do? Like, I had intentionally put my podcast on pause because this was a huge career opportunity, and I just wanted to focus on this. I was also feeling burnt out with the podcast. I lived, north of Burbank still, and I just was so lost. Like, what do I do with this free time? I've never had guilt-free weekend time in LA in 3 years. All I did was just work. And so I started hitting up people that I had met through the podcast. Like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Where are you going out tonight? And it was honestly like a real like reality check for me because I was like, wow, a lot of these people, it was very transactional. Like they have their own lives. Like, yeah, it was a win-win-win. They came onto my show. They got to tell their story. I got to not use them, but I got to have them as a guest. Somebody got to listen to the episode. But like they had their own lives, like I was kind of, I don't want to say the word intruding, but I felt like I'd be asking them, hey, like, what are you doing this weekend? And like, oh, I'm kind of busy, or there was no reciprocation. And so that was a huge, like, reality check for me that took a few months. And I'll never forget the coincidence of the timing of this episode, boys. February 14th, Valentine's Day, or around Valentine's Day of 2020, coincidental, a month later, pandemic, not even 2 weeks. But around this time, 2020, I just had like a breakdown, like full on like mental breakdown. I'm bawling my eyes out and I just feel like so empty. Like I have this great salary. I'm making great money. My bills are being paid. But like when work is off, I literally don't even know who I am. I don't even know who to hit up.
And what are you doing it for too?
What's the point? And the thing is
where's
like,
the end?
I had this new true north working at Liquid IV. I loved the founder. I loved the change the world mission that they had built. But this was not my, like, it was a new true north for me, but I felt like I had lost my identity, right? Because I shut down the podcast, which was my baby for 3 years, right? So it's like, who am I now? What do I, like, I was this creator, now I'm not. I'm working at this company. Like, what does this all mean? And the shift happened actually, like, when I was breaking down, I just grabbed my, it's not like TikTok today, these videos blow up, but I just grabbed my phone and I recorded myself and I was just walking through like where I was at mentally. And like, it's so clear that I'm just like literally having a breakdown. My eyes are bloodshot. You can tell I've been crying. And I posted to my social media and I go to bed. And the next day I'm met with a lot of love and I'm hit up by people that I had met through the podcast that maybe I had reached out to or not. And we're like, hey, like, I'd love to grab coffee next week. Hey, do you want to grab dinner? Hey, my friend's throwing this volleyball party on Saturday. You should come. And, I wasn't looking for the attention, but by telling the world exactly how I was feeling, people could see where I was. And then, some really genuine people came out of their way to help me. And that's when the transition of like community really started to build. And I met a lot of people. And then I was at that time in Hawthorne. I moved to Venice. And then the rest was history.
Yeah, I mean, I would say vulnerability in that aspect is a very powerful thing. Like there's a lot of people that are going through the same situation that you are, and just in general in life and day to day, and they don't have an outlet to express that or don't think to express that on social. And the fact that you did, and so many people probably felt that vibe and, excuse me, just reached out proactively to be like, hey, listen, I'm here too, and that's the power of building that community where people can lean on each other,
Yeah.
so that's really awesome.
It's interesting. I'd love to share with you guys because you wouldn't know this about me, I don't think. I maybe shared this a few times on podcasts or, long story short, growing up, what I thought was my biggest weakness was that I was a very sensitive human being. And I compared myself, right? Right. Why do these things make me emotional and want to cry when other guys that I'm growing up with in high school, they're not fazed by it? So for the longest time, I thought that emotional aspect of me was a weakness, a true weakness. I felt insecure about it. There were a lot of moments in my childhood where I would literally without others knowing it, feel like crying and, I'd have to man up because that's what men and boys do. And it wasn't until I got deeper in this work, fast forward a decade later, that I realized the weakness was actually my greatest strength.
That's your superpower, right?
And the bridge was then being so comfortable and confident with sharing these things online, not because I needed the likes, the comments, the shares, but because I didn't know, I just knew it needed to be spoken to the world. The reason I got the job at Liquid IV was because I posted on my Instagram story, I'm done driving Uber, I'm burnt out, it's October of 2019, hold me to it, by the top of 2020, I'm done driving Uber. Brandon Cohen sees it, DMs me to get on a call that week. The rest is history. Wow. There have been the same thing with the breakdown. Yeah. I share with the world, the right people come running in. And there's a moment like this 2 weeks ago that I don't want to publicly share just yet. Not the post, there's posts and stuff, but you wouldn't be able to connect the dots right now. But I then reached out directly to someone asking for help. 48 hours later, the help has come. There's something to be said about telling the world exactly how you're feeling or what you're trying to do, and the right person that can help or sees it wants to help, right? You guys are in LA, heartbreaking watching all the fires, but look at the beauty of people coming together, right? I can only see it, you guys are living in it, and it's just so clear that even when something as heartbreaking like that happens, people come together. And so I've seen that. To round it out, I've seen that in my own life, sharing these things, even when I thought it was a weakness, even though it was vulnerable, telling people exactly how I feel has actually created the bridge to the solution or gotten me to where I think I needed to be.
Yeah. And it's also the power of prayer, manifestation, vision boards, one of the main reasons, we've obviously connected with you, and we like your energy. And when me and Kyle were thinking, oh, we should get Bobby onto that first event. And then I saw your post and I screenshot it to Kyle. I was like, look at this. This is crazy. It's
here you go again.
We're talking to each other.
Here you go again. There it is. There's another example. I'm looking for opportunities and I'm trying to figure it out myself. I'm sending emails, sending DMs, and I go, I got to post it online. Who knows who's going to see this, right? Another great example. And, it's not every day I'm posting, I need this, I need that. That's very needy. I'm very, mindful and intentional about, posting something where I'm looking for help.
Yeah.
But there's a great example, right? You guys have shared, you guys are already in the process of thinking about it. Yeah. But, I trust that was a divine moment for some reason for me to share that and see you reach out. Because when I saw you reach out, Kyle, I think you had just slid through the DM or maybe Paul reached out. I forget the context, but I was just literally.
Well, it's funny because you posted that, and then I reached out to you, direct message, and then I think I texted you.
Before you saw the story.
Yeah. And then Paul reached out to you, and Paul and I haven't even talked before that point. So we both reached out separately, and we're like, oh, yeah, I just reached out to Bobby. And we're like, wait, you reached out to Bobby too? And I was like, yeah, this is what we wanted, right? So the authenticity of not getting in your own way and kind of getting the vibe that, hey, this is what I'm putting out there, and it's going to resonate with it, So it was kismet that happened with us. And I
can't make it up. You can't make it up.
No.
let's take a turn here, because I love your story, and we're gonna do another podcast, and we'll go deeper into your story, because there's a lot to
bob
talk
and weave
about.
wherever you want to go,
There's
baby.
a lot to talk about there. But we got people coming on March 20th. We're super excited. It's our first event.
Yeah.
And we want to give people a lot of value,
Yeah.
And obviously, you help people out, which is great. Like I've had a business coach for the last, 4 or 5 years. And since I've had my business coach, like everything has gone up, not only in my business life, but in my personal life, in my confidence, and so many other aspects of my life. I met Kyle through my coaching program as well. So let's talk about your coaching business, because I think this is going to go into what we're going to be talking about on March 20th.
Yeah. So going back to what I said earlier, which is, first I want to set the frame and we'll get into it. Like, come to the event because it's going to be just value, and it's going to be about making it a collaborative experience, right? It's not going to be just us three sitting up there talking and just being in our own world and like, we're on stage, we're cool, get us photos. Like, my intention is to get the entire room involved. So if you hear this and you're in LA and you're thinking about potentially going, you should go, because you're going to get direct like value from it. You are going to be a participant. This is a dance. This is not just us three boys standing on stage and having fun. Like, the entire environment is going to be participating. But to go back to the question, which is, there's a great quote I heard when I was in LA last in September. You are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. Say that again. You are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. So that context of the 2019 me, burnt out, then like just completely lost, there's a lot underneath the hood that we don't even have enough time to like scratch the surface on, but like, just mindsets like the more I work, the more I get done. No, it's quality versus quantity. Or, dating is going to be a waste of time. Incorrect. Finding the right partner will actually help you go to levels you never could have imagined. And I can only say that because I'm speaking from experience because of my fiance, right? Like, there's a lot of misconceptions and beliefs, and that's what I help people do in my program. Right? It's a 90-day program. I get them in. My goal by the end of it, we take the training wheels off. They're riding off to the sunset by themselves because they feel equipped. They have the knowledge and understanding of how to do 4 things: how to audit their life, how to get clear on what's actually important, how to reverse engineer and build a calendar that aligns with where they're trying to go, and 4th, the cherry on top, how to set boundaries that keep them on track. How many of us set the New Year's resolution, 2 weeks later, we're down the drain, we don't even go to the gym anymore? These are the types of things that I'm inspired by. Not inspired because I want to see people in that situation, but inspired by there's actually a way to solve this really simply. We just got to stop thinking about the end result. We got to understand where we're trying to go, but how do we reverse that into the daily discipline? So that's what I help people do in my program. We get clear on the 90-day goals, where they want to be, but we take it 7 days at a time. Small, incremental steps. That makes all the difference. Because you stack that over 12 weeks, those 3 to 4 changes per week, that adds up to 40 to 50 changes over 90 days, and that's where you see massive changes across the board.
I feel like that's why a lot of people get discouraged and don't start, because they think, it's 3 months, 1 year, 2 years. It's too much work, and it sounds like this breaking it down to make it much more attainable, little bite-sized pieces that you can then roll out over time is very powerful. Yeah.
You know what the other shift is? I'm so happy you said that, Kyle, because it's just like light bulb. What it's really about is stop getting obsessed about the result and get obsessed about the process. Become the lifestyle that will get you to that. Right? I don't have a current fitness goal right now, right? When 2022, 2020 to 2022, I went head down on running. I was obsessed, ran 3 marathons in 90 days. It was incredible. And that was great. Having like a physical, goal was really great because it made me become disciplined. But even to now, like present day, I don't have a fitness goal. I'm not training for a marathon or an Ironman or anything like that. But I still treat my lifestyle as if I was, because I know the benefits of it. So for me, it's about creating a lifestyle that just so happens to be the vehicle to get you to where you want to be. That's what it's all about. It's just breaking it down like that, and stop getting obsessed about how do we get from point A to point B, but what's the vehicle that will get us to there, and how do we make it sustainable and something that actually sticks, rather than this 2-week rah-rah David Goggins all in, and then you fall off.
I actually heard something on the Rich Roll podcast. It was this morning, and he was. It just came out recently. I forgot who the guest speaker was, but he's an elite athletes coach, and he talked about that. He talked about how when you're obsessed about this end goal, then you're not consistent, because you get to that end goal and you feel like once you get to that goal, like running a marathon or maybe closing that deal or making a certain amount of money, you feel empty after you get it. You're like, shouldn't I feel better about this? You know? So he talks to his athletes and he says, get obsessed, like you're saying, or enjoy the process that you're doing right now in order to get to that goal. Yeah, obviously you want to get to that, but be happy with the process, because once you get to that goal, win the gold medal or like whatever it is, it's fun, but you're not going to feel that same feeling that you think in your head that you're going to feel.
Yeah. 2 examples. I just watched the Aaron Rodgers documentary.
I was just going to bring that up. I was like, he even won a Super Bowl and he wasn't happy at the end of it. Yeah.
Another great example, business-wise, founder of Movement Watches, just put out a YouTube video a couple weeks ago. I'll send it to you guys.
That's Jake, right?
Jake Casson, yeah. The title of the video says it all. I sold my company for $100 million. Now I'm lost. Like, it's not the actual end goal.
No,
it's the process.
Your
it's
life
waking
is today.
up every day with that vision.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Kyle.
No, it's fun. It's not at all. I was just saying your life is today. You know, it's the things that you're slowly chipping away at that is bringing joy to your life on a day-to-day versus 6 months down the road. That's a full-on goal. You know, it's slowly what's building it up to it.
And that's why I package the whole thing of what I do as life design. It's not life goal, coach. It's life design. How do we design your day, your week, your month to align with where you're trying to go? That's where the true joy is found.
And are you helping more? Sorry, Bobby, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's not when you get to the result. I mean, we could sit here all day and check off every athlete, entrepreneur, where they have these massive successes, and then it's just like a sense of emptiness.
Yeah. Do you help more entrepreneurs or also people that are working, like a 9-to-5 job?
Yeah, I mean, so a couple years ago when I first got started, and transparently when my rates were much, entry level of me getting started, I appealed to a lot of different people. Early founders, when, bootstrapping it. I've worked with hairdressers. I've worked with, content creators. I've worked with people that work 9-to-5s. Like, I have worked with a lot of people that have this issue of building success without the burnout. The only difference is with time, I've gotten a little bit more clear on that person I'm looking to really serve. And it ends up being kind of, established working professionals, founders, C-level executives. And there's just, because of the way I've built the business, it's not a light investment, but that's also because of what's on the other side of that investment, right? The value gap of what is provided to some of these people is worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So doesn't mean you can't hear the things we talk about and, be an entry-level 9-to-5er, and not resonate with the stuff. You can take the courses, you can, take the content, hopefully apply it. But at least when we talk about the actual one-on-one, it tends to be a pretty high caliber individual.
Yeah. And what do you tell that person that is not a high caliber individual in terms of, because I'll be honest, I was selling real estate for about 10 years in LA, and I wasn't pushing myself. And I felt low confidence, and it took an inspiration of my ex-girlfriend that was an entrepreneur to get me to be like, all right, what am I doing? You know, why don't I go out there and try to do something special, leave my former team and start my own thing, you know? But what do you tell that person that is kind of stuck and to get them out of that and to maybe do coaching or just seek help?
Yeah, I think it's figuring out what creates urgency for you. So what I mean by that is if I connect it all the way back to 2016, the urgency that put so much healthy pressure on me to take this idea and actually execute on it on a high level was I had college loans that were going to kick in within 6 months of graduating. And I went to my parents and said, hey, I'm not getting a job. I'm going to start a podcast, and I think I'm going to drive Uber to pay the bills. Fun fact, I almost went into real estate. That's another story for another day. I'm going to drive Uber, and I'm going to start this podcast. My parents are like, I have no idea what a podcast is. And thank God for them. They said, we support you, we love you, but just know that when those college loans kick in within 6 months, we are not going to float you any cash if you can't make the payment. Like, this is on you to figure out, right? We provided the safety of a home for 18 years, and like, it's time to go fly your wings. If you want to come home and you got to do this from home and figure it out, that's fine. But like, when those loans hit, that's on you. And that at the time is scary, but also like it was the greatest pressure to put on me because I knew I had to take action. Yeah. I didn't have the luxury of kind of just going with the flow. So to answer your question, my advice would be, what's the healthy pressure you need to create for yourself? Is that I want to have kids in 5 years? Is that I have all this debt? Is it, I want to provide to my wife and I just feel like I've kind of been mailing in these last few years? What's the healthy pressure that's going to help you start taking those steps forward?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's good stuff. I think I don't want to go too much further in because I know you guys have another podcast you're doing and we're getting the event. I think we're a little bit over our time, but I think this is pretty powerful right now.
Yeah, it is. Give the viewer 3 reasons why they need to be there on March 20th to see Bobby speak.
We get Bobby back in LA at 1, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So 3 reasons. One is, people love dollar signs, right? We just love to equate things for dollar signs. This is going to be thousands of dollars of value at no cost. Maybe the minimal, I think there might be a minimal cost to entry, but like this is thousands of dollars of value for a nickel. You are not going to be just sitting there listening. You're going to be a participant, and you're going to have an opportunity to have a voice and ask questions and be part of it. And then thirdly, what I think is most importantly is you're going to be in a community of people that are also trying to create and live a life by design. And if I've figured out anything in that post-burnout, right, and I knew this to be true leading up to it, right, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I don't know where this listener is at. You're hearing my voice. I don't know where you're at with community, but I can promise you the people that are coming to this event are going to be motivated, inspired, action takers, hustlers, high performing. These are really good people to be around. So that would be my 3 reasons of why to show up. Bonus points would be to go look at these 2 good-looking men while they're up on stage as well.
Let's go.
I'm talking about Paul and Kyle, not me.
Awesome. Bobby, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, brother. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you in a little bit over a month.
Yeah, Bobby, I'm grateful for you, my man. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys having me.
Appreciate you.
See you, buddy.